And this is an asymmetric strategy game where one player is going to be playing as a shark trying to eat an octopus, and then the other player is playing as that octopus who's trying to eat 4 types of different foods in order to win the game. The cool thing about this is that it is heavily asymmetrical, so the shark player is going to be using primarily bag building and dice worker placement, while the octopus player is going to be using hand management and deck building. The shark is always visible out on the board, but the octopus is actually going to be hidden on the back of one of these many tiles, and these are all going to be stood up facing towards the octopus player, so they always know where every tile is at any point in the game. But if you're looking at the board from the shark player's side, all they see is a bunch of blank tokens, and they don't know which one exactly is going to be housing that octopus. Of course, there are different ways that the shark can discover what is on a given token, but like I said, the octopus also needs to eat 4 different types of food in order to win the game, and anytime that the octopus does perform the eat action, they do have to reveal themselves, which does reveal their location and make them more vulnerable to the other player. The way the game plays is that players are going to be alternating back and forth, taking their actions, and like I said, the shark player is going to be using more of a dice worker placement mechanism, and at the start of their turn, they're going to be drawing 2 dice at random from their bag, rolling those dice, and then deciding how to use them. There's 3 different colored dice that they can draw. There are the blue dice that allow them to take extra movements on their turn, or the red dice that allow them to attack at a given region of the board, or the yellow dice, which will allow them to reveal one of the tiles in a region. The cool thing about the way that the shark moves is that it can't swim backwards, so you always have to move in the direction that the shark's facing, and the shark's going to be moving around the edges of the spaces and around the perimeter of the board, and it doesn't actually get any movement points. Instead, it always just gets 1 free movement. The cool thing here is that the length of that movement can change depending on the blue dice that you have available to you out on the board, because anytime that you move with the shark, you can actually move through any blue dice so long as the next blue die that you move through is smaller than the one you just moved through. This can actually chain together to create quite a lot of movement, and then at the end of your movement, you're always going to be removing the dice of the largest value and taking that off of the board. If you want to use one of your yellow or red dice, you're going to be spending those to either reveal a token or attack a token in one of the adjacent spaces. And in order to do that, each of those spaces will have a value associated with it, and the value of the die just has to be higher than the value on that space. The cool thing with these dice is that you don't actually have to use them, so if you got a color or value of a die that isn't particularly useful for you, you can reserve it off to the side and then later spend that value in order to purchase ability cards. These ability cards will give you all sorts of different ways to tip the scales in your favor, but it does also come at the cost of those dice, and then anytime you do purchase one of those ability cards, one of those die must go on to a track on the side of the board, and once this track is completely full, then that shark player has run out of energy and lost the game. And one thing to note about this track is anytime that you attack a space on the board, you always have to put that red die on the track after you attack, which means that you only really want to attack when you are sure that the octopus is located in that location, because you don't want to be wasting your attack dice. Like I said, the octopus player is going to be playing a little bit differently, using more of a deck building mechanism, as well as manipulating the cards that they have access to, as well as manipulating those tokens out on the board. Because the goal of the octopus is to eat 4 different types of food, and in order to do that, they need to get those food tokens out on the board, and then get adjacent to those tokens, and then use an eat card in order to eat one of those foods. As I said, this does reveal the octopus, so luckily the octopus does have other cards that allow them to hide the tokens again once they've been revealed, and even swap or shuffle tokens around, so you do want to be strategic when you play your eat card and make sure that you do have some sort of plan of escape. Every time the octopus does successfully eat a token, it's going to be gaining the special ability associated with it, which is going to be making that octopus stronger as the game goes on. But like I said, they have cards that allow them to bring new tokens out on the board, and some of those tokens can even be traps. So if the shark is getting desperate and attacking different areas of the board, you do have additional ways to make the shark regret it. One thing to note is that most of your cards do also come with a cost in order to play them, and that cost normally comes in the form of revealing a tile. This of course means that the shark player is only going to be getting more and more information with every card that the octopus player plays, which only emphasizes the urgency of the octopus player to try and eat that food and use one of their cards to get back into hiding as quickly as possible. But if the shark is able to attack the octopus player, this is going to be putting players into a shark attack. And this doesn't necessarily mean the end of the game, but it does get harder and harder for the octopus to escape with each time that this occurs, because each player is going to be starting the game with 3 different cards, and then during the shark attack you're going to be using one of those to put into play into that shark attack. This uses a bit of a rock, paper, scissors mechanism, but this isn't completely random because each of these cards does also come with a special ability, and depending on the situation of the game, you might have some idea of the card that your opponent wants to play. But the catch here is that once the octopus player uses a card in one of these shark attack situations, they can never use it again for the rest of the game. This means that you might survive the first one and you might survive the second one, but once you get to that third one, the shark player knows exactly which card you want to play, and that pretty much means that that shark's going to be enjoying some fantastic sushi and the octopus has lost the game. If that one sounds interesting to you, you can follow along to get notified on launch, and I'll have links to this campaign in the description below.